Welcome to Madison City Channel's Know Your Candidates interviews, co-sponsored by the League of Women Voters of Dane County. I'm your interviewer, Kathleen Fullen, and I would like to introduce Mark Maier, running for State Assembly in District 81. As we begin, I'd like you to give an opening statement as to the educational, vocational, and civic experience you have, which prepares you for this office, and why you are running for the State Assembly.
Well, my education, I graduated from Portage High School. I had earned a business administration degree at MATC. I worked my career in construction because I enjoyed building buildings. I was a construction superintendent, building large projects, commercial buildings, for over 30 years. During that time, my responsibility was to build quality buildings and to arrange schedules and to make sure that the job was run safely. I enjoyed building a lot of buildings in this area, some notable ones, Sub-Zero and Pleasant Company. They topped the list. But I enjoyed that so much that even my son became an architect. But he moved to Germany. So he's an architect in Germany. But when we were young, that's what I did, is I would show him how to build things. But he said he'd rather design his own buildings. I preferred to build them with my own hands. So, as far as I was a parish president for St. Norbert's, and during that time, I was responsible. They had me as a point person for one of the biggest renovations on the church. The church was the first Catholic parish in Dane County. That was pretty exciting. We repaired the steeple and replaced the roof. But once again, I had to interact with people and do what I did best. I think I can help in my capacity to be a good assembly person and to help lower property taxes. But at the same time, my biggest concern is for education. The literacy rate in Wisconsin is comparatively low. According to the Department of Education, they put it at 48% literacy rate at grade level. If you go to the grade schools, it's almost 35%. For as much money as the taxpayers are having to pay, we have great schools. As I mentioned earlier, my son lives in Germany. I've been there. I've gone to some of their schools. Their schools are modest compared to ours. We have really nice schools, but their literacy rate exceeds ours. So there's something not right there. We need to address that. Our kids are our future, and they need a good education, and the taxpayers, if they're going to pay for it, they'd like to see that. Right now, it looks like in the schools, in regards to literacy, we're failing at that. Hand in hand with property taxes continuing to rise, it's hurting first-time homeowners. The cost of construction has gone up considerably, as most people know, but with property taxes also rising, it gets to be a point where they can't afford to build. On the other end of it, for people that have worked hard their whole lives to buy their own home, hopefully pay their home off before they retire. Now they're retired, property taxes keep rising, and it works into the retirement money. So that's my focus. On one end is to help the kids, our students, our children, to have a good education, but we can't just try to buy our way into a good education, because the United States as a whole, we spend the second highest per student in the world, with the exception of one country, Luxembourg. But they have a 100% literacy rate. And the United States ranks 19. And most of the countries, well, all of the countries below us, pay even thousands less per student. So it's not a money thing, it's just how we're teaching. And I'm looking forward just to increase literacy rate in our state, but to watch the cost. Because as I mentioned earlier, you can't just buy yourself out of a problem. You have to find out why there's a problem.
Well, thank you. How would you like to see the state utilize the current budget surplus?
Well, there's many options. One is if, in my own household, if I had a deficit like this country does, not that Wisconsin has the same deficit, but I was looking at paying off some of my bills first, rather than just continuing to borrow more money. Secondly is to fund the schools, to help lower property taxes. One option was, but then I heard it from some people, well, we should start some programs to help schools. Well, every time you start a program, it costs money. Why don't we make what we have already work, rather than start a new program that costs more money? Because we might have had a bumper year this year in Wisconsin for taxes excess. That doesn't mean every year we're going to have that. There could be things that come up that now we have a shortfall, but these programs are still running. So that's what I would do with the money. I think the last option would be to try to refund it back to the taxpayers, because it costs money to turn the money back. You've already spent the money to collect it. Why spend more money to give it back? And per household, it would be so small, we'd be better off paying either our $11 billion debt, paying part of that down, or help the schools to lower property taxes.
Thank you. What guardrails, if any, would you support to protect our environment, health, property values, and household budgets from large projects such as hyperscale data centers or concentrated agricultural feeding operations, CAFOs?
Well, for the data centers, they use a lot of resources. And even though on the upside, they create jobs, but as a whole, they're temporary jobs, they're construction jobs. But in the end, it's more automated. There's a few people at the top that are making a lot of money, but everybody else, they're not making that much money. And so in the short term, it's a good thing. It creates jobs. But in the long term, it creates more property taxes. It's using more resources, including water, thousands of gallons of water. So I would be against data centers at this point, because they're not self-sufficient enough. They're depending on the taxpayers to support them. Corporations should pay that.
Okay, thank you. So what, if anything, should the state legislature do to improve election processes and safeguard election integrity?
Well, I do not have a problem with showing my ID to vote. And I know in 2020, my wife and I received 2 ballots, mail-in ballots apiece. We didn't ask for them. We threw them away because we vote in person. I just talked to a gentleman that his neighbor had 6. In his knowledge, he handed all 6 of them. I would say that if you look back a few decades, France had mail-in ballots. And now they've outlawed it because they could not control the fraud. And I think we're at that point too. If I have to go, I just picked up some furniture. I had to show an ID, pick up some furniture. But something as important as voting, why wouldn't you have to show an ID? I think it's important to have an ID to prove who you are and that there's not multiple votes coming in. And I think the only thing with a mail-in ballot, if you're out of the country, if you're disabled, there's certain small requirements. But for the general public, if you care enough about this country, you should be able to go out and vote in person. I think it's a lot of the mail-in is people they don't want to leave their house, I guess. I think it's not that hard to go down and vote. And if it's important to you, it's unfortunate that the majority of people, well, I shouldn't say majority, but a lot of them, they don't vote because they don't want to take the effort. Well, it's easy to mail in, but how do you account for some of these mail-in ballots? I think we need more accountability on that.
Okay, thank you. Share with our audience an example of an effort with which you have been involved that demonstrates how you can be effective in creating policy change.
Well, I'd go back to my own career where building buildings, I'd have to go over building plans, try to find out if everything's going to fit together. Many meetings with architects and engineers over the years to ensure that it's going to go together the way it's supposed to. It'd be the same with any policy. You need to look at all aspects of it, as I alluded to earlier, with the short term and the long term. To me, you look at the long term. From my experience, for me to put out a poor quality building will hurt in the long run. To work harder to have good quality, it's going to pay off in the long run. So I think that's what I would try to bring to the table, is my experience in scheduling and organizing and trying to make the right decisions.
Thank you. What other priorities do you have that we have not already addressed?
Well, one thing that as part of the assembly, well, a big one is the Governor Evers' 400-year partial veto. They're taking away, in my view, taking away the power of the legislators. That should be their decision to create budgets and to okay budgets, and it shouldn't be that a governor of either party to come in and say for centuries, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to spend the money. That should have been done differently. It should still be in the hands of the people. And I mean people being people just like myself that will come in, run for an office, and try to make a difference. Not for one person to dictate policy for hundreds of years.
What would you like to say to the viewing audience as we complete this interview?
Well, go out and vote. I will try, for me, I try to do the best I can like I have. I actually practiced martial arts for over 30 years. And I taught, so I was a teacher. And I rose to the rank of 8th degree black belt, second highest in the association. I think that's part of it, where I wasn't just practicing, I actually taught people too. So that's another part of the practical experience that I've had.
Okay, I want to thank Mark Maier for speaking with us and thank the viewing audience for taking the time to know your candidates. I want to remind everyone the general election is Tuesday, November 3rd. Every election is important. Please vote. On behalf of Madison's City Channel and the League of Women Voters of Dane County, I thank you for joining us.